Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're excited to have you. I'm just going to kick us off by having people introduce themselves in the chat, especially if you're new. Um, so, name, what organization you're from, feel free to put your role or not. And I always like to do a time of the year opener. And so maybe either your favorite, like what you're looking forward to for spring or favorite part of spring, or if you're feeling the luck of the Irish today, I guess you can do something about St. Patrick's Day. Um, but thank you again for joining, and we'll jump right in. And Kristen, you can take it away with our announcements. Oh, and let me make sure Jenny's actually here. Oh yeah, perfect. Jenny is here. Great.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kristen Driscoll from Mass General Brigham, and I first want to kick us off by introducing Jenny Murphy from the Commonwealth Corporation. Jenny is the new director of the Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund, WCTF, at Comcor. So, Jenny, welcome. And I think you've been in your role a little bit. I took a little LinkedIn creep on your profile. So you've been in it a few months now. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share with the group.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself and talk a little bit about WCTF. So, I have been in my role for about 6 months, which has given me enough information to be at least informative when I am reaching out and talking to the ecosystem about the really impactful work that we're doing. So, it's really great to be able to connect with this consortium, particularly because we really feel strongly that regional partner infrastructure is integral to being able to help the workforce development ecosystem to be impactful with programs. So, along with introducing myself, I just wanted to share a really brief update on our Donnelly Workforce Success Grants, which many of you are familiar with. The interest in this funding is incredibly competitive, as you all know. The funding environment is incredibly constrained, and we are seeing challenges across healthcare and behavioral health sectors and being able to identify and capitalize on healthcare and behavioral health workforce development funds. So, for our Donnelly grants, we are currently for the next round in our application review process, and we anticipate our next round of Donnelly funds to be released this fall. So, we are targeting a September release. And these grants are going to continue to focus on employer partnerships that support training, career mobility, and workforce retention strategies, and focused on healthcare. And I just want to give a quick plug for some of the healthcare workforce sustainability efforts that my colleague Tommy Heverin and I have been focused on and are really excited to speak about and provide some technical assistance to the field around in the next couple of months. So we are looking forward to offering some communities of practice where we're going to bring together WCTF grantees, employers, and ecosystem partners to talk about workforce strategies, to talk about some of the training initiatives and best practices that have resulted in those, talk about challenges related to recruitment and retention, and then talk about the emerging workforce needs across the healthcare and behavioral health sector and how we hope to be able to help support sustainability. So, looking ahead, we are very excited to be connecting with many of you this year to talk about workforce strategies and sustainability. And I also want to say I welcome anyone to hop on my calendar anytime. I'm really happy to be able to talk about some of the work that we're doing, some of the sustainability efforts that we're looking to bring to the ecosystem, and to think about how we can continue to help support healthcare and behavioral health work across the ecosystem. So thanks so much, folks, for providing the opportunity for me to introduce myself and talk a little bit about the work that we're doing today.
That's excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that with all of us. And I also thank you for giving us the preview for the fall of 2026, because I know there's a flurry of activity for this last deadline, I think that just passed, right? On March 6th. So that's awesome. It's good for everybody to know from a planning standpoint what's coming up next. Um, Ashley, has Abigail arrived, or could we jump to Matt?
We can jump to Matt.
Okay. All right, Matt, hoping to introduce you next. So we would love to welcome Matt Hartman, Assistant Secretary for Workforce Innovation with the State Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, to share more about how the state is approaching the Workforce Pell Grant program. So obviously this is a super exciting topic. I feel like this is the new LinkedIn feed, all of the different articles and posts. So Matt, would love to hear more from you. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the introduction. Just by way of background, so I'm with the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development. A couple of my roles there, one of them is working with the State Workforce Board as its Executive Director, and the Workforce Pell Program is a key aspect that has to run through the State Workforce Board. So that's initially what brought me to be working on the Pell Program here, as well as our Mass Hire Innovation Project, another major focus of my role. These elements cross over because of the work that we're doing in the mass hire system to integrate programs and to really capture a lot of the future state systems that we want to be able to take advantage of with the technology integrations we're looking forward to. And the Pell program presents a really good opportunity for doing that. So we're getting involved in the Pell program. I heard the mention of the LinkedIn articles that are going up. People are starting to learn more about it. I'll give a little bit of brief background. I don't know do you want me to put up slides or do you have the slides available? Perfect. So just as a bit of brief background, this came out of the OB3 bill from last summer, which was passed in July. And it was one of maybe the brighter spots of the bill in terms of creating an actual opportunity out of it. And importantly, what it does at a basic level is it takes the traditional Pell program and expands it down to lower credit hour programs. These are considered the workforce programs, the oftentimes non-credit programs. And importantly, it develops this new funding model for these programs going forward. It's focused on upskilling and importantly for high skill, high wage, or in-demand jobs. I think you're going to hear those terms a lot because it's the key focus of eligibility for the types of occupations that this program will fund. But at its core, it still uses the traditional Pell eligibility standards for students and academic institutions that are going to be part of this have to be Pell eligible. So those basic standards from the Pell program still transfer over to the Workforce Pell program. It brings down some of the credit hours. It opens up the field of courses that could be available and opens up other student pathways that haven't traditionally been available, while the Pell program has been focused on those associate's and bachelor degree type programs. So that's kind of the basic underpinning. It has been years in the making. There's been different versions that have come through Congress or made steps in Congress, but this is the first that's come across the finish line as it is right now. So it's kind of an idea that's been kicking around, but finally made it across the finish line. It's mainly focused on community colleges because those programs are more widely eligible for the Pell program and have these courses in a lot of cases already running. And that's another feature that I'm going to get into in a second. There are a lot of administrative oversight pieces to this, which is what we're working through right now. So when this program came live this fall, we started to learn more about the regulation process that was going through on the federal side. There was a negotiated regulation process in the fall, which completed in December. And during that process, we set up a working group within labor, education, higher ed, community colleges to start talking about how we would actually implement this program. We wanted to move quickly because this is a funding source and, as Jenny mentioned, a very austere outlook for the future. So it's a new funding source that we'd like to take advantage of as quickly as possible. But it is a pretty big administrative hurdle to start navigating. The regulations went through some transformation a little bit during the last couple of months. They're finally out for public comment. So the real structure of the program is out there for public comment at this point. We expect that final regulations will go into place around May. And then the program itself is scheduled to be live. I wouldn't say that any state will be ready to kind of take advantage of it immediately, but July 1st is the go live date from the federal side. Really what that means is that they're accepting applications for the program. And that's a lot of what we're working towards, is making sure that we are in the best position possible to start presenting applications through the federal program that's going to stand up. So outlining a few key elements, I think, of when you're looking at the Workforce Pell program to understand around the administrative side of things that we have to work through, focusing first on that high skill, high wage, or in-demand jobs identification. That is a role that is in consultation. The governor has to consult with the workforce board on that, the state workforce board. So that's a big role that we're standing up. We have to create a structure around what that looks like. That's a big data infrastructure question. We have to be able to identify those and support those findings with the data that exists. We're working with our Department of Economic Research on that to identify the right data streams. Additionally, there's a lot of program requirements. So to think about this, there's two big pieces that have to happen. Three really, because you have to also qualify the student. But the two administrative side for standing up a course are you've got to have the occupations identified and you've got to have the programs identified. And both of those have very clear standards that are outlined in the regulations. So for the occupations, it's high skill, high wage, or in demand jobs that have to be identified. Programs, there's a lot of restrictions around what the outcomes are. Importantly, after a couple of years of implementation, there's going to be a 70% employment requirement for people working in the field of the training. So that's a pretty high standard, and that's one of the initial program qualities that we need to be looking for. Additionally, there's a value added earnings test. So this is going to be another threshold for programs to overcome, that they have to be able to show that the program itself and the occupation itself that the participant will go into will have a larger earnings than the program cost itself. So those are some major restrictions, and very importantly for the first year and for years going forward, but very much so for the first year, the program itself has to meet these standards for a year before it's allowed to move forward in the process to be eligible for the funding. And all of this, we have to set up a state system for identifying these things. We have to get that approved by the secretary at the federal level. And then we start to have that churn going through while we're sending programs up to the federal level. A big unknown is, what does that federal portal look like? We don't really know what that process is going to be yet. They've created the regulation system, but they haven't really, developed how we're going to submit courses and programs and occupations. So we're still, trying to identify that as well. I think you can go to the next slide. It shows a little bit about some of the framework around what we need to think about. So there's this big state-led effort, which is going to work through all of these questions. This involves defining definitions around stackable and portable is another terminology that's in there, is that we have to define that this is a program that leads to stackable and portable credentials. There's a big credentialing aspect to this. We have to stand up those actual systems of how is this information going to be collected and coordinated. All of that has to happen at the state level before we start submitting to the federal level. Once the federal level starts coming online, we get that clear picture. July 1st, dollars won't be ready to go on July 1st, but they'll start accepting those program applications. There is a very special portion of it that discusses apprenticeships. So apprenticeships isn't like an automatic go for a Pell program, but it does get across a couple of the steps initially to enter into the feed. And so we have to build that into the state level regulatory process. They're looking for us to build that in, but it does give a little bit of a leg up on apprenticeships to make sure that that's an avenue that has a clearer pathway through it. So another big question we're working through at the state level is actually how this fits in as a measure of advancing a student through the process. This is not spoken to at all in the regulations, but really we need to figure out a way where the Pell program fits together with other financial aid programs that are in existence, because Pell eligible students, we hear about the big number. It's around $7,800 right now for a maximum Pell grant. Most students don't qualify for that. Many students qualify for very much less. And when we're talking about $150 credit hours, we're talking about a very much even smaller portion of Pell eligibility for the final dollar amount that a student might receive. So if students are receiving $1,000 or less from the Pell program, it has to be matched with other financial aid programs to make sure that the student is actually able to walk through that course timeline. So that is another big piece that we're working with our state partners on, is identifying what is the pathway for that student. I think our state workforce boards our local boards will play a role in that pathway navigation. There's a lot of discussion at the federal level and the state level of figuring out how do we braid those funding streams so that we can really take advantage of this program as a boost to funding that we could get students into these programs with. And it's a real opportunity to target certain occupations that are coming up, which I think are very relevant to this meeting is around healthcare. Healthcare is initially some of the occupations that we're looking at. Some of the programs that we're looking at are programs that are targeting very much in need, in demand roles in healthcare. So this is just another potential piece of funding that could help us get some of the healthcare jobs filled that we know that are desperately needed across the state. But it goes back to that complicated picture of how do we get that financial aid picture to work for a student? How do we get that student in the front door? Where are they landing when they come in? We're asking all of those questions, trying to navigate it and create a structure that makes the most sense for all of the people in the picture, so that ultimately we're getting students into these programs and we're getting students into the jobs that need to be filled. And that's an important part of this program to think about, is that with that 70% requirement, we're really going to have to also work with employers to make sure that as we're getting students into these programs, they're landing in jobs. And some programs are going to be better at that initially than others, and that's where we're focusing on. What we're looking for, because we have to have that 1 year of proven success essentially before the program is eligible for the Pell funds. We're really trying to identify those programs that are already in that field right now. So what we're targeting is, hopefully, by this fall, we can have those target occupations, potentially some target programs that are really ready to be pushed up to the federal level and made eligible for the program. So targeting fall as a time when we might see a couple of pilot programs start to roll out in this, but we've got to work through that process. There's a lot to do before then. I think we have a really strong working group going that is identifying all of the pieces that we need to put together on this. And importantly, as we work this through the State Workforce Board, we've set this up in the policy subcommittee of the State Workforce Board, which is a brand new subcommittee. I saw Joanne on earlier. She's a member of that, obviously a chair of the State Workforce Board. And this is a big program that we're going to be talking about in the policy subcommittee as well. That's where, we'll start to bring some of these occupations up, some of these programs that we're looking at, starting to identify with the policy subcommittee, how we target some of our thoughts on what the right occupations are, because it's going to be driven by data, but I think we also want to understand, some of the most critical pieces that we might be missing or not identifying through the data, or when we're looking at all of the decisions in a bigger picture. The advice of the policy subcommittee and the State Workforce Board is critically important to making sure that lands right. On top of that, I think members of the State Workforce Board are always great ambassadors on workforce initiatives. And so in terms of getting the word out about this program, getting the understanding out about this program, they're going to be critical allies in that space as well as groups like this. I think we'll want to start to socialize this as it starts to come together. Make sure employers, make sure training providers and community colleges and everybody is really aware of the opportunity that exists here and how to navigate it. Because there's going to be a lot of somewhat tricky information to work through, but I think there's a real opportunity here that we're trying to take advantage of and make sure that the state is in a great position. One final closing thought is I think I would just say that we've been in communication with a lot of states about this as everyone's trying to work through the little pieces of it. We're definitely in the pack of states that is moving forward on this, rather aggressively. We have some strong support on it because it's being tied to our innovation project at the workforce level. And that really helps us be able to advance and move on these questions we're trying to work through. I don't know if we're near the top of the pack, but I think we're doing pretty well. There's a lot of states that are all grappling with these questions. I think we've answered some of the questions internally around processes in a faster way than some other states. So I really feel pretty optimistic that we're going to have something good come out here soon. But it does take that work, and we're going to work as hard as we can to get it up and going as close to that July 1st date as we can, and try and work through those programs up to the federal level beyond that. So I've got about 5 minutes for some questions if people have any, but hopefully that kind of gives you a real basic intro to where we are and where we're going.
Any questions for Matt? Kim.
Hi, thanks. Really exciting work and opportunities here. Do you have a list of healthcare roles that you're thinking of targeting, or is that still to be determined? Because we're doing some separate work on the MHA side, and would just love to keep in touch. And Joanne, I know you're involved in our stuff and there, so you'll be a good in between. But would love to hear if you have anything identified so far. And also, is there any funding for employers, or is the funding really just covering the training and education for the students?
Yeah,
you.
on the second question, it's just the Pell funding for the student. So it is a student led approach, and that's where that kind of front door question comes in. Is we make sure students are able to find it, navigate the financial aid process, because like I said, it's not going to be the entire picture, but it is a student funded program. On the first question, in terms of occupations, so we're working with our Department of Economic Research. We're building off of the Opportunity Star rating that they give to occupations, because that's a real strong data source that we can point to. And that's really the basis of where we're coming up with that list of occupations. We don't have a refined list yet. That's part of what we're working through. It's going to have to meet all of those other qualification standards as well. So in terms of when you start to think about the field of occupations that could exist at each level of the program, meeting those standards is going to be in some cases challenging. So there's the value added earnings test. There's a 70% completion rate. Those are the things that we need to work through when we start matching occupations and programs. And so when we ultimately get to that point of these are the set of programs we need to advance, it could be a smaller list. We might have identified occupations where there's only one program available, while another occupation might have 10 or something. Just it's kind of a step-by-step process we need to work through. And that first step is using that data to identify.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'll share that I've been hearing about the idea of workforce health for a long time, so it's exciting that it's coming to fruition. And I think in healthcare in particular, we know that there are so many positions where you need less than an associate's degree, and it can really change the income that you're making. So I think there's a lot of potential for workforce health to support healthcare, and I look forward to continuing to have that conversation with you. And thank you for your work on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we certainly agree on that. And that's why we're excited to move quickly as we can on it.
Great. All right. So I think next up is Abigail Cross from the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, Abigail. Welcoming you. And I think you have an intro to make, but also want to make sure that folks are aware that the City of Boston Office of Workforce Development has a new workforce development program directory, which looks really great. I took a quick look at it before I was away for a little bit, but definitely I'm sure Ashley has I'm going to pull up the link, but Abigail, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Abigail Cross. I am Assistant Deputy Director of Special Initiatives and Grants Management over at the Office of Workforce Development. And if I can share my screen, I don't know if that's okay. I think it can. So I just wanted to share our awesome workforce development directory that one of my colleagues worked really hard on. It covers job training programs that are office funds. You can look through the directory to see your program. You can and fill out this form if anything looks off to you. But basically, this is what the directory looks like. Sorry if I'm scrolling too fast. You can filter it by program type. So if you just want to look at job training programs and healthcare job training programs, you can see all of the wonderful programs that we fund through healthcare training. So it should include the organization name, training that is involved, a quick description of what the training is, some general information about how long the program will be, and some contact information. So please do fill out that form if any of this looks off, because it is live on our website, and we highly encourage constituents to use this, as well as other organizations. You can also filter it by age, if to filter it by young people, or the program format if it's hybrid, fully remote, or in person. There's also this additional map view, if it will load, that basically just puts all of these programs on a map. So if a constituent or program wants to look at any programs in a particular area of Boston, they can use this the map view to do that. But that's basically all I have. I know Ashley also has a form to share with you if your program isn't currently funded, or you can't find it on the directory, to be added to the directory. And if there's enough interest, we will consider adding those programs so that constituents can access all of your awesome programs. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions. But this is pretty much it.
Any questions for Abigail? Looks like a great resource, and the form and the link are in the chat. Thank you so much, Abigail, and the team that put this together. I'm sure it was a huge undertaking, and the content is really, really useful. So we are going to also do have a presentation or an update from Erin Laverty, Employer Engagement Manager for the PIC. Would love to welcome Erin to speak about summer jobs.
Thank you, Kristen. Good to see you. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to quickly come on here and reintroduce myself. A lot of you may have formerly remembered working with Lila Julian. Lila has moved on to Duke University, and I have stepped into her role. So my name's Erin Laverty, as Kristen said. I work on the employment engagement team here at Boston PIC. And as you know, summer is here. We have so many students who are eager and they're excited to really get started with a summer internship. So just for some wonderful breakdown of what's been happening in our space, last week of February, we hosted the PIC Preview Day, where our healthcare employers were able to jump on a call with all of Boston Public School students who signed up, and really were able to present to the students what the summer jobs could look like for them, share opportunities, share requirements. And on that call, we had over 200 BPS students, which is amazing. And we transitioned right from our preview day into the application season. So as of right now, we have 492 Boston Public School students who have designated that healthcare is their number one choice for the summer. So what does that mean? That means that we are busy at work over here at the PIC, and we are working on matching students, reviewing resumes. Our career specialists are meeting with students to make sure they're available for the summer, make sure they know what they want to do, talking about all options. And I really wanted to come on here and just say thank you to all of you. This wouldn't be possible without all the partnerships and with all of the teamwork that we do throughout the city of Boston. And as many students, this number is going to go up and up for our application, and we can't wait to see all the students that come into our pool. So thank you so much, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, so now we're going to get to one of the entrees of our meeting. I'm excited about this. We're going to take a little time and reintroduce and reconnect with the region's one-stop career centers. They're such an important part of our ecosystem, and I'm just happy that they're here today to talk with us about how they're working with healthcare. So let me introduce Michael Payne, Director of the MassHire Boston ABCD Career Center, and the MassHire Downtown Boston Career Center team, including Belly Hacker, Director of Career Center Operations and Innovation, and Alicia Smith, Director of Employer Engagement. So we're going to hear from them. I know we also have some other MassHire folks on the call, and we welcome your contributions in this discussion. So take it away.
Great. Hi, welcome everybody. Good morning. Sorry. All right. Thank you for letting us present to you all today. It's great to be back with this healthcare consortium, and we're going to share some information around the career centers, of course, and how we, enjoy working with employers like yourselves, and particularly around healthcare. So we're going to start with just some background overview for folks who may or may not be as familiar with the career centers, but Boston has two MassHire career centers, and they are the Downtown Boston Career Center and, of course, the Boston, which is run by ABCD. So I'm just going to share a little bit of overview of how these things are organized. So the PIC oversees both of these career centers, and all 21 career centers across Massachusetts are supervised by a workforce development board like the PIC, and we are all affiliated under the State Department of Career Services. However, each career center is operated locally by a community organization. So at MassHire Downtown Boston, we are operated by JVS, Jewish Vocational Services, and the Career Center operates as a department within JVS. Mass Hire Boston ABCD is located in Roxbury and is operated by ABCD, Action for Boston Community Development. And we have several members of the team here, as we just shared, and so you'll be hearing from several of us today. And let's see, so sorry, give me one moment here. Oops, sorry, my apologies. Sorry, technical difficulty. Sorry, I am not, I shouldn't have shared and presented. Can somebody just let me know what slide you're seeing? I apologize.
Yeah, you're on the right slide.
Slide 3.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so we have a number of services through the career centers for job seekers and for employers. And really, we are the meeting place for those two groups. And so I think it's interesting for you all, maybe familiar with the employers side of things. So I'm just give a quick overview of the services that we provide to job seekers, such as career coaching, job search assistance, exploration of training options, which we're going to really dive into in just a moment, resume preparation, training and workshops, referrals to services and resources outside of the career centers as well, and then events like job fairs and recruitments that bring employers directly in touch with the job seekers. And for employer services, we again have a range of things that we offer, such as raising the visibility of your open roles. We can promote open roles through distributing the job listings in different ways. We can then refer qualified candidates back to those open roles. We love to be in touch with talent acquisition teams around what is most pertinent and current hiring needs. Additionally, we have job fairs and recruitment events every month throughout the year. And then, of course, we also provide outplacement services in the case of layoff. These are all free or very low cost services to employers. And so we'll dive into a bit more in just a moment there. But I'm going to pass it to my colleague Belly to share about some job placement data.
Hello, everyone. I'm Belly Hackel. I'm the Director of Operation at Messiah Downtown Boston. It's nice to meet all of you. And I want to dive into just general metrics for our employment placement for FY25, just to give you a big picture view of all the industries that our job seekers are placed in. So as you see in the graph, I hope you can see it well. The number one is technology at 32, financial services and banking at 24, consulting and professional services at 18, and healthcare is at 11. It's ranked fourth overall. So just to give you a little bit of context to that, is we see over 9,000 job seekers. I know that Michael probably has his own numbers. It's a newly operated career center, but we see a lot of people. And once they leave us, it's not necessarily so that they, come back and say, "Hey, I got a job. Here is where I landed." So often we have to chase them, and so we think that the ranking of the healthcare is probably much higher overall, but we just wanted to give you a general view of the general employment placement. And here in the next slide, you will see, Alicia, can you move? No, the one before. Yeah, what you would see is those are the top 10 healthcare employers that we have seen in our job placement. It's Johnson & Johnson, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, Pfizer, Dana-Farber, Optium, Eli Lilly, and MGH, of course, Mercek, and CVS Health. So it's basically healthcare insurance, clinical research, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and other biotech startup. So it's a really nice view of the different sectors in healthcare of where people were placed. And that's just from our general metrics from people who reported back to us. I would like to move on to the next part of our presentation, and that is your healthcare placement. So my colleague Trish, who works day in and day out with your clients, will introduce you to the your part of our presentation. Trish, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Trish from Mass Hire downtown Boston, and I am on the WIOA team. We work directly with clients to help connect them to help them find the proper program, the ones that are WIOA that are approved by the state. And definitely healthcare is the biggest is the most popular with our clients just because there is great trajectory into not only great programs, but also as far as a career path, it's always a solid choice.
Okay. So, we work with the city. Can you go back? We work with the city to approve these vouchers to get people with lower education into training. And as Trish said, the healthcare training providers are very popular, and we do place a lot of people in healthcare. So we'll show you the stats, and that's for both career centers. So if you can move to this slide 7, go back again, sorry. You'll see that healthcare has a lot, 50 placements of people who come out of approved training go into the healthcare industry. And basically, that means that 1 out of every 2 people get to go into a healthcare job, which we're very proud of. The rest, as you can see there, is admin and customer service is 11 placement, skilled trades 3, security 2, and transportation 1. So we wanted to highlight that. It's an important thing to share with you. So healthcare is the top employer in Boston, and it does show that that's what the training results skew people into those jobs. Next slide. So this translates to 49% of market share. Essentially, 1 of every 2 people, as I said, we placed in entering in the healthcare field. This is the testament of alignment between career advisors, our coaches, training partners, and the current labor demand in Boston. Slide 9. So how are we getting them there? Most of our candidates are brand new to the field. Only 3 individuals came to us with some experience. So we always, as Trish explained to me, we always try and get them, if they were in a lower healthcare position, we'll get them the training to get them up into a higher position. And only 3 out of these 50 individuals had some sort of experience. And the rest are brand new to the field. We moved 100 job seekers through your funded training programs. This is earn to learn or train to place model, and our primary vehicle for turning non-medical workers into licensed professional. So we are very proud of that. Next slide. So now let's look at take a deep dive into our employers that we do place people at. Hold on, slide 11. Our big three partners continue to lead the way. It's Brigham and Women with 12 placement, followed by Beth Israel, which is 10 placement, and Boston Medical with 6. And we also have Guardian Healthcare with 4 placement. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Beyond the major hospital, we've developed a niche pipelines. A medical assistant graduate are heavily recruited by Fenway Health, while pharmacy techs are finding homes at local centers like East Boston Neighborhood Health and retail partners like CVS.
Well, thank you, Belly. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Michael Payne. I'm the Systems Director for Mass Higher Boston ABCD Career Center. And within our career centers, we have a wonderful department that kind of brings life to the relationship between the employer and the career center. And that's our business services team. So when you see those letters BSR, it refers to business service representative. And they're the ones that want to be your champion on behalf of you towards the career center. They want to serve as your service provider. They just want to make sure that there's good key service happening so that you can tap into sound and qualified talent. And so here's some key ideas pertaining to the relationship or the collaboration between the BSR team and healthcare employers. Employers share open roles with BSR for distribution. So we make sure that our communities are aware of roles that you have. Business service reps maintain direct referral lines to many hospital networks. Specialist initiatives include curated featured job postings lists specifically for medical training cohorts, and healthcare employers join career fairs, info sessions, and other recruitment events to connect directly with job seekers. We could go to the next slide. So in terms of what's helpful, when we think about what works, 3 things stand out, and it's important to note that these insights come directly from observed outcomes in FY25 and not by theory. First of all, externship transitions. Externships are the strongest predictor of placement success in healthcare. When job seekers complete clinical placements that convert to full-time roles, employers already trust the candidate. So this reduces hiring risk for employers, time to hire, and candidate drop-off after training. Then there's direct referrals. Direct referral channels between BSRs and hospital talent acquisition teams act as a fast track. So these relationships allow candidates to get eyes on their resumes faster and receive clearer feedback. And then finally, credentialing aid. Covering state licensing fees, exams, and credentialing costs removes one of the last major barriers to hiring. Without support, candidates often delay completing credentials, accept lower wage work outside healthcare, drop out at the final stage. Credentialing aid ensures candidates are immediately hire ready when employers need them. We can go to the next slide. And so, as you all know, there are obviously going to be challenges and barriers, particularly for job seekers, but also for the employers as well as the career centers. When you think about the job seekers, you have to consider the fact that childcare and transportation are generally a big barrier towards the job seekers' experience. Unpaid clinical hours create financial strain, often leading to candidate drop-off. And then onboarding hurdles, which is also something to consider where there's a lengthy process that's considered and candidate unresponsiveness post-training prevent official placement closure. When you think about employers in the Career Center now, we think about job placement, which includes the idea that career centers often rely on self-reporting by job seekers to confirm employment. This creates delays in data capture, incomplete placement tracking, and missed opportunities to measure success accurately. This is an opportunity for stronger feedback loop where employers also report hires from referrals or job fairs. Sorry, give me 1 second. I apologize. There's also the need for communication. Um, the reality is that we really highly rely on communication from employers, but we don't always get that communication. Upcoming hiring surges happen because of that. Role-specific needs we need to know about, excuse me, and timing for recruitment events. These are all things that we need communication about. And then when you consider the fact that communication is necessary, when it is proactive, career centers can prepare talent earlier. We can align training pipelines and scheduling targeted hiring events or job fairs. So in other words, earlier signals equal better matches. And then finally, guidance for career coaches. There is a clear opportunity to better equip career coaches with employer expectations, what hiring managers actually prioritize, and clear healthcare pathways. This helps coaches provide more strategic, industry-specific guidance, especially for first-time healthcare entrants. All right. So we want to open up for any questions or ideas pertaining to strategy so that we can have a better, more productive relationship.
I'll just jump in really quickly. I want to say, well, first, thank you, Alicia, Michael, and Belly for that presentation. And we certainly have time for discussion. It's interesting. One of the challenges that you had mentioned that was listed on the slide had mentioned, of course, I'm sorry, the way you phrase it just escaped me, but I think it's going to be a perfect segue to the presentation that we're going to be doing after this, which, is, I think it was looking for like feedback from the employers about strengthening the navigation for job seekers. And so please, on the flip side, like I know we're giving feedback now, or not just feedback, but having a strategy discussion now. And we really welcome the feedback that you'll also have on our presentation as well to strengthen that for job seekers and CBOs and the like. So thank you for your time today. And I welcome other comments, and I see an active chat as well.
Do we just unmute to ask our questions? Or hi, everyone. My name is Julia Rodenheiser, and I'm the Community Workforce Development Specialist at Franciscan Children's. Michael, would you mind to restate or share again the information about externships? I want to share that with my manager as we're thinking about programs that are going to come online in the next couple of years, and we're going to have a really big a lot of open positions, and a part of my role is pipeline development and creating brand awareness about Franciscan Children's. But I want to make sure that we have a lot of candidates once those programs come online. And if there's a way to bake that in now, years in advance, I want to share that with my manager.
Sure. This basically we're saying that in terms of being a predictor of how placement success is going, externships is the best way, ideally. It helps us with regards to the sense of risk that employers have with regards to hiring, the time to hire, and also this idea that a lot of candidates tend to drop off after training, and so the externships kind of keeps them in the loop, so to speak, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's generally it. And Belly, I don't know if you want to add to this as well.
I do.
Okay.
I'm on the WIOA team.
Oh,
Forgive
just
me for interrupting. Um, I think the best thing to do when I heard externships, I was like, yes. So we do need to connect with the schools that we work with that are eligible schools like BCI, YMCA, Millennium, because those are the three schools that are most popular with our WIOA clients. And sometimes these schools struggle to help find externships. So I think dealing directly with those three eligible programs, I think they would love to hear this.
I, I'll go now if that's okay. Uh, I was surprised to hear that only 11% of jobs were in healthcare. That seems small to me given how prevalent healthcare is in this region. And I would say, some of the stuff Michael talked about is some of the stuff I think there's a lot of room for growth, really thinking about how can the career centers refer candidates to us? How do we create this process where you send us somebody, we know they're good, we know they've been screened by you, and we're giving you good feedback as well, and how do we create kind of a virtuous cycle there? And it's not, there are some good WIOA training programs, but there are also a lot of other training programs that we're actively trying to recruit people for and train ourselves. So I look forward to this conversation starting a more dynamic process, thinking about all the ways we can work together.
So, Joanne,
And
I would like to respond to you about, as I said, this is not an accurate, it's just a snapshot. It still came forth, and I'm sure there are more jobs that are placed in the general employment placement. I'm sure there are more jobs in the healthcare that came from us. It's just not reported. So I just want to make sure you understand that. And it's still number 4. I was surprised by that too, because you saw out of the WIOA placement that ranked the highest. So you know that it's what we saw in the job placement is probably not completely accurate. So just keep that in mind.
I'm gonna hop in here too because I feel stuck on this, right? And if anyone has any like magic answer, I welcome it. But I think we struggle with job seekers reporting back their employment in clearly the career centers struggle with that. We struggle with that when we have grants. I'm sure employers that are running grants, you have if they're coming to you and then in your system, I'm sure that you have your ways to use your workday systems and what have you to look things up, but like it's tough. Tommy and Jenny, I'm sure you see this across the state with different folks that you're funding. And whenever I see an issue like that, then I think, okay, well, when we're all facing the same problem, we have to think differently about how we can get this information. Or, I know many folks, including us, we've done stipends for reporting back. You try to incentivize. But this is where I think our challenge to really understand what the full picture looks like is continuously stalled, and we're continuously facing this problem, and it's not painting a fully accurate picture. If anyone has ways that they're finding strong outcomes with actually getting job seekers to share where they've ended up and the full details needed, or again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Jenny or Tommy, but if other folks from across the state are finding strong ways that they've implemented this, I'd love to hear it. And then I see Jeff, I see Belly with hands up as well. So folks
Yeah,
can feel free to jump.
and Ashley, I just want to react to what you were just saying. So I know that wage match data gets published about 2 years old. And if I remember, I I want to say the PIC gets that data. I can't remember though. But I'm just wondering if that is at least some measure that we can look at to kind of give us a sense of, even though it's old data, like I said, it's like 2 years or so old. I wonder if it just gives us at least a ballpark as to kind of when we look at sort of those employment numbers, how realistically is it able to tell us how many people work in healthcare and those types of fields? So I might be speaking a little bit out of school and maybe a little ignorant on this, but I
Jeff,
feel like somewhere in the back of my mind, I feel like I remember that.
Jeff, we used to get it. We no longer get it at the state, have not done for maybe 15, 18 years.
Oh my God,
And
now you're
when
really setting me back a long time in age here. Thanks.
I was being kind, and when we get it, it's an aggregate, so we know. So currently, the career centers get their self-reported data. It's about 10%. It'll come in around a 10% placement rate. So if you use that data, you'd be completely skewed. When we get the state report, we come in usually, it's around the 65% mark now. It used to be around 72% of career center customers get placement. However, it is an aggregate number. We can't break it down to either career center or industry. So the state has a lot of work to do on wage matching and reporting back.
Never mind that. Okay.
I
Thank you.
know.
I think Matt had to drop off, and it's too bad because Tommy, you made some great points about workforce Pell programming and demonstrating 70% placement rates as well. And I think really continuing to think on this. Go ahead, Tommy. I see you.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, and I think it's even more of a pressure to make sure that we're having some kind of system that helps us with that. I mean, I think the programs that I've worked with where there's the highest amount of the self-report is where the employers are really involved in the program's timelines, you know where the candidates are going. And so if you don't hear from the candidate, you can hear from the employer, and the employer can report those outcomes as well. So, if there's a handful of employers who are really following the program's progress and being very engaged and active with, you know, I mean, we talked about externships. I mean, all those kinds of things, whatever gives everyone a little bit more of a sense of where the candidates stand and where they are, and having multiple eyes on them from program and from employers and otherwise. I found those programs to have the best self-reported outcomes at the end of the day, and that might mean lower volume or just more understanding what the capacity is for what you can track in terms of number of cohorts, number of people, where they're going, and so forth. But I don't have a magic bullet answer, unfortunately, for how to grab that. And the incentives is another thing. If that works to some degree, whatever gets you a high batting average. But I know for sure, like the programs where it's basically a couple of employers are following it very closely, those folks have had good luck catching folks.
And
Just to,
oh, sorry.
I was going to say, just to kind of respond to that, I think that is like also another really strong reason why healthcare jobs might be in a really good position to be like kind of at the leading edge of workforce Pell implementation, just because we do have strong, more of an ability to track job placement outcomes than because there's concentrations of employers versus some other fields where you might get a skilled certification and go into business on your own, or, work as an independent contractor. So I think that, as the state is kind of like coming up with these lists of like which jobs are in demand, high quality jobs, being able to meet the administrative requirements is another piece to keep in mind. I also just wanted to share, we recently had this great presentation about Equifax, and using Equifax has a tool that you can pay essentially to track somebody's employment, kind of like a credit check, but you sort of pull like where do they work and how much are their hourly earnings, that we might experiment a little bit with using. Curious if anybody has used that system.
And I'll just add on to what Katie said. My team tracks referrals from our partner organizations and who gets hired at the end of the day. And we're always happy to report that back. And I'm sure there are other healthcare employers who are doing the same. So that's a great incentive for kind of working with us and referring more people to us, I think.
Joanne, do we have to, you automatically send these reports or we have to ask for it?
I don't know who we're currently working with at your career center. I know with Susan Bucky, we had a very good relationship where she was regularly sending people, and when somebody got hired, she knew about it. So um, it's not a regular report; it's a relationship and kind of communication between those two entities.
I just wanted to comment on the Equifax piece. So with a tech-focused grant with Clark University and PCG, they had invested in the Equifax piece. And so a quick overview would just be, I know that they told me about two options. One was like an actual contract with Equifax. I think it was a rather hefty price point. The other was you would be able to pay for, you could run, well, first you're running, I believe, social security numbers. So there's that component, like, are your folks actually sharing those with you, all of that. But you're running social security numbers and let's say you ran 100, but you only got reports on 3 actual job outcomes. You're actually only paying for the 3. You're not paying for the 100 that you've run. So I don't have experience doing that directly, but I know someone who ran the team that did that. If anyone's looking for more information, I'd be happy to connect you all to or find out more information and report back, what have you. Anyone can follow up with me on it, but it was helpful for finding folks where they are. It gives their employer their I believe their start date, their wage. So at least gives us, some important information that when you're not hearing back from participants. But I do think that I think if there's a way to do it that not, 25 different organizations are all paying Equifax to have to do that, that would, I think that there's an opportunity for collaboration there, but something to consider. Any other like wrapping questions or, Michael, Belly, Alicia, is there any other like prompts that you're looking for from the group for feedback or strategy before we transition to Jeff?
We've been working on, we have a lot of job fairs during a year, so we've been working on developing this relationship where the job fairs end to see how many candidates actually landed a job. So we've been working on trying to get that back to us, and I'm sure that will increase the number of placements and also show that the healthcare is actually really robust. So that's one thing. And I think sometimes we get very focused on so many things that, and the only thing really we have to get focused on is getting people into jobs. So if we make that the focus for everything we do with that end goal, I think we can improve our job placement reports, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah, nothing else on my end.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all for presenting, and Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. No, thanks, Ashley. And thanks to everybody for presenting on that. It's the Career Center system in Boston is so important for employers to be connected with. And, it's just that ongoing relationship. I know that we're constantly reaching out as well. So thank you for all of your help and thanks for that great information. So moving on to the group discussion point in the meeting. So with your help, we're hoping to create sort of a healthcare 101 type of slide deck that we can use across a variety of different venues. And the idea around this is that, healthcare is hard. It's a complicated industry. There's a lot of entree points. There's a lot of opportunities for training that lead to jobs. And sometimes the sometimes the jobs don't always sound like what they are. And sometimes a lot of our job seekers aren't really sure what the roles actually are. I'll give you a quick example. You know, one of our recruiters was talking to me, and he was just talking about transport jobs, and he was saying that he gets a lot of candidates that think they're going to be driving people around and in cars. And so, there goes, that's just a quick, kind of easy example about some of the um, complexity and miscommunication that can happen around healthcare jobs. So, we're hoping to create this a slide deck that will help orient not just staff at various community partners like community colleges, career centers, and so forth, to help them understand what the career paths are and what healthcare is like around hiring, but also for the clients that and students that you're serving as well. And really helping as a way to kind of address some of those misunderstandings that may stop somebody from applying to healthcare, and but also help people that may already have the skills and experience that are needed in healthcare to move into more entry level positions. And so we're hoping that we can get some of your feedback to this presentation and help us see sort of what's strong, what's useful, what's missing, what do we need to maybe change the language in, and sort of how to move forward with this. So I'm going to go through the slide deck. Awesome, Ashley. Thank you for putting that together. So starting off with just some things job seekers should know about healthcare careers, around offering strong job stability, a lot of different roles that only require a high school diploma or GED. Um, I think, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but how your existing skills already apply to some of the jobs in healthcare, because folks may not understand that the jobs that they've had in the past, while they're not healthcare related, they can actually be very applicable to jobs in healthcare. How to make yourself have a strong application, and also just how to be prepared. I feel like those last two things are um, more sort of job readiness 101, but I feel like it's very important, particularly moving into the healthcare field. Next. Um, so some reasons why folks should be considering healthcare and first of all, strong job stability. I think we've all established what a big industry healthcare is, and the fact that there's a lot of roles that are available. Certainly competitive benefits. Uh, all of us offer some level of tuition reimbursement and continuing education opportunities, as well as opportunities for career advancement, workforce development programs, educational programs, and so forth, retirement contributions, and also a chance to connect with an organization that is mission driven, that offers a chance at doing meaningful work, particularly around and around just helping people and around just being connected with people, both in clinical and non-clinical roles. So this is kind of a shopping list of all different types of entry-level healthcare job opportunities. Again, some of the job titles may be confusing or misleading, so we wanted to make sure we put them out here. You can see there's many of them, and the majority of these only require a high school diploma or GED, maybe some experience, but not always necessarily. Ashley, you didn't want me to go through those specifically, did you?
Following your lead here, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I wanted leave some time for some
Yeah,
rich discussion on this. So I don't want to get too
absolutely.
in the weeds about things. So I think as we've been establishing with this workforce Pell discussion that we had earlier, I think it coincides with this slide really well, is that while the previous slide certainly talked a lot about some of the entry level jobs that you can get with minimal experience, these are jobs that you can get into with very short-term training. And I think that's one of the best things about healthcare is that there are opportunities to take short-term education programs and get, good paying jobs that will give you an entree into your first job in healthcare, but also start helping you create a pathway moving up. Those things being, a certified nursing assistant or a patient care technician, which is, like an acute care nursing assistant, phlebotomy, sterile processing tech, which is working in the OR, an EMT, behavioral health tech, an EKG tech, a medical assistant, pharmacy tech. Those are all great programs that are offered at, uh, training vendors as well as our community college system. So we're kind of keeping this slide as an opportunity to sort of build out some health career pathways. And I feel like this is probably going to take a little bit of work on our part where we want to lay out in our own hospitals, like what are some of the pathways that people will take from that entry level job and upwards. And oftentimes there are internal trainings that will help people advance those career pathways up. And one of the first examples that we have here is somebody who's working in environmental services, may be able to obtain a position at sterile processing, but through education that might be offered at the hospital or just through education they seek out themselves, they could go on and become a surgical technologist. So those are some of those healthcare career pathways that we need to work on, and that we'll be putting in this slide, but it will hopefully help whoever's reading this, whoever's doing the slide deck, to understand what are the pathways and how do you move forward and how do you move through careers in healthcare, because it's not always nursing that I want to jump to. There are so many other opportunities. I think this slide is great, being able to kind of help people understand that the skills that they have working at one type of job can be very applicable for jobs in healthcare. So, when we think about healthcare jobs, I always come back to the sort of one of the number one things we look for is customer service, because being able to work with patients, being able to work with all kinds of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds, um, being able to have some of that experience with customer service is so important. So being able to show that on a resume is really important. But other things like communication skills, it's right up there with customer service. Any skills that you've had that are a public-facing role or problem solving, and these might be things that you may have gained in retail jobs, hospitality jobs, maybe banking jobs. Um, Being able to multitask in a fast-paced environment. Healthcare is fast-paced. There are very, very busy days that you just have one patient after another, after another, after another coming in, and you're going to be able to multitask, but also be reliable too. So being able to, if you've gained those skills in things like the restaurant industry or food service, where multitasking as well as being in a fast-paced environment is common for that kind of industry, that could be a real relatable skill that you could use in healthcare. Um, so even though we deal with patients, you definitely need patience. So being able to have patience and demonstrate responsibility, these are things that you may have gained in roles in childcare or even family caregiving. Those are, great things to see on a resume. Um, and then organization, attention to detail, and communication skills. There's that communication skill again. So things that you may have gained in perhaps education or even in administrative office roles is great experience to be able to translate it to healthcare. So like a lot of industries, we want to make sure that we're guiding people to fill out applications appropriately and completely. I had asked our TA team, tell me like what are some of the common mistakes that job seekers will make that will get them excluded from jobs that they're applying for. So things like submitting a resume with only job titles and no responsibilities, leaving out relevant experience, not including your dates of employment, submitting applications without uploading a resume. Even though I know our TA team will take an application without a resume they always prefer to have one. So I usually try to have people submit one anyway. Not proofreading, having spelling errors, having sentence structure errors, those types of things. Missing scheduled phone screens or interviews or just kind of blowing off appointments, not going to get you a whole lot of points. Um, Also, not asking questions during the interview. It's important to coach your students and your clients to ask at least a few questions and to be able to have more of a conversation with the recruiter. So, again, these are not surprising. Like these would be things that you would want for any industry that you're going for. But I think it's important to share these types of details with your students and your clients. Just a few more tips on applications. To create an application account and upload your resume. Usually, we require that you create an account on our website. That helps us track things internally. So if you do apply for a job, we're able to track, your application or applications as we move them through the hiring process. Trying to tailor your resume to a specific job, that's always a big plus, um, including all of your relevant experience on your resume. Sometimes you may have job seekers or students that may have had experience in another country, but they don't think to put that down. I think that's super important. So you absolutely would want to put that down. Making sure that you include those dates of employment. Even just a few bullet points detailing out what it was, your responsibilities that you were doing, that's important to have. Always proofreading, but also, making sure that you're coaching your students and clients to be responsive when HR reaches out regarding your application. It's common not to answer a phone call from a number that you're not recognizing, and I understand that. I do that myself. But if somebody leaves you a voicemail, to try to get right back to that person, and be able to be there and be responsive. That's a great thing to show. Um, Again, these are things that I think we teach everybody for whatever industry around making a strong first impression, being prepared and practice interviewing questions, arriving on time, following up afterwards, highlighting your experience, highlighting why you're reliable and accountable. If you're going for a customer-facing job, making sure that you emphasize teamwork and customer service. Thinking about having an experience that you can kind of showcase what some of your problem-solving skills were or handling stress. And then again, just asking some thoughtful questions at the end of the interview, I think makes a great first impression. Some common interview questions, not that different from other industries. But, I think one of the most important is, if you haven't worked in healthcare, why do you want to work in healthcare? And just because it's a good job isn't really a great answer. Thinking about things about patient care, mission-driven organization, being able to work for a great organization. Those are important things to be able to say. Why are you interested in this specific role or a specific organization? Thinking about why a time you handled a difficult situation, and particularly a difficult situation if you had a public-facing role or a customer-facing role. I think that would be a great example to use. How you worked as part of a team, how do you manage stress? What are some of your strengths? What do you think you need to do in order to keep growing? Um, I know for sure all of our TA team will always, right off the bat, ask about your schedule and shift availability. I think one of the most important things that you can do to coach your clients and students is to make them understand that healthcare is a 24/7, 365 job. And that when you are applying for your first roles in healthcare, chances are you're not going to be getting a Monday through Friday 7 to 3 shift. Most likely, you're going to have shifts that are rotating, that are weekends, that are every other holiday, that might be in the evening, that might be overnight. So I think one of the first, so after you talk with one of your clients or students about working in healthcare, one of the first things that you want to ask them is, what is your maximum availability? because that's going to be a really important part of this. All right, Ashley, next one. Just thinking about different pathways into healthcare. I just happened to look at the clock, and I want to make sure that we have time. Um, and just making sure that folks remember that your past job experience absolutely qualifies you for healthcare experience in the future. All right, that was
Jeff,
a quick run through.
yeah, it was a quick run through, but it was such a comprehensive run through. So thank you so much for presenting and sharing some initial thoughts. And again, the purpose of this time right now is to get your feedback on what you thought. Was there anything that is missing from that presentation? As you were going through it, I was just thinking, gosh, what a competitive edge some of your clients in hearing from the career centers could potentially have by being able to share this knowledge with them. So would love again to get everybody's feedback on this. Is there something that career centers staff might want to know more? Or is this something that maybe the job seekers need to know more about? I'll just start with, I didn't see explicitly, but we might want to add a thank you letter can always set you apart from other candidates. It just happened this week where for one of our programs, a hiring manager said, they were close, but I got a thank you note from one client. So I'm gonna go with them, or one of the applicants. So I'm gonna go with them. Anyway, I'll be quiet now. Your thoughts?
I'll share. Thank you, Jeff, for all that work. That was great. I think it might be helpful if we can identify what jobs don't require a high school diploma. I think that would be super helpful for the career centers. And then I think another asset to working in healthcare is a consistent schedule. So you're generally hired. It might not be like the perfect schedule, but it's consistent. So you're not begging for hours every week, like you have your hours. And I think there are a lot of other industries that are like, oh, we're not going to give you this many hours because I'm going to have to give you benefits. And we tend to be more like, no, we'll hire you full time with benefits. This will be your schedule. And I think that's another asset.
Yeah, and I think you go along with that, Joanna's, is that if you are looking for just part-time hours, we'll definitely hire you for part-time hours or full-time hours. And there are opportunities for both. And it's not, and I think to your point is like, it's not like, oh, I've got 20 hours one week, but 40 the next, but 10 the following one. It doesn't usually do that. Yeah, Kristen, your comment on immigrant students who have healthcare experience in their own country, absolutely, it's very important to be able to talk about that. That's huge.
Yeah, and if I could just comment a little further, it's you often when you're talking to the student, you have to like draw that experience out of them, because they feel like it's not relevant since they don't speak the same language or they learned it in a different language, and and we're always trying to help them overcome that stigma. Will you be offering these slides to the group here? Because there's some very helpful hints for some of our advisors.
Yeah, it's our intention to be able to have this slide deck available to anybody who wants it. So, we got some of the core content down, and I think now it's going to be kind of refining that and prettying it up a little. But that's the intention, is to be able to have this slide deck for anybody who wants it.
Great, thank you.
Question. I'm kind of curious, and this slide deck is really geared towards individuals that are transitioning into, or potentially could be transitioning into entry level roles. Is there a need for us to maybe have a slide that speaks to, should you presenting already with a bachelor's degree, or here are some things that you might need to think about? I just know that there are a lot of job seekers out there, and socioeconomically disadvantaged, underrepresented doesn't necessarily equate with entry level. And so because of that, I'm wondering, might there be a slide that just speaks to some of the maybe middle level roles? And again, I I wonder if those are clients that you come across.
Thank you for saying that, Candace. I think the way you phrase that is so spot on. When folks are disenfranchised or underrepresented or underserved, that does not necessarily equate to only transitioning or needing or being skilled for entry level. So I thank you for calling that out, and I'm taking notes on the conversation, and I'm adding a slide that we can add to. And to Jeff's point, this is just a start. And thank you, Jeff, for your talent acquisition team for really giving us such a strong base to create this and giving so much input and feedback to their experience of around their experience and what has led to this this strong start. And I'll just also, welcome anyone for continued feedback. And if you have folks in your teams that would like to potentially be part of a working group for finalizing the slide deck, I welcome anyone to reach out, and I'll probably do some outreach myself to some of you. But yeah, Candace, what a great point. Thank you.
And I'll quickly say is that this is also for you too. So, for you to familiarize yourself with healthcare so you can best guide your students and your clients into roles in healthcare. Because again, it's certainly complicated for the job seekers, but all of you who work in the fields where you're guiding people into careers, you need to know a little bit about biotech, and you need to know about banking, you need to know about this one and that one. And what we want to do is we understand that healthcare is probably one of the most complicated. So what we want to do is make sure that we're giving you a tool so you yourself are actually familiar with roles in healthcare too, and how it all works.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot I was unmuted. Sorry, I'm like doing my active listening. I just saw the time, so I want to wrap us. But I will follow up with folks. Certainly, like Kristen, thank you for your comments about how some school advisors might use this. I welcome if you or someone from Bunker Hill wants to serve on a working group. That's a great place. Jacqueline, I know you're in a new role, but you have a lot of experience serving job seekers. So if that anyone's interested, please reach out. This will end up probably living under the resources page on the consortium, but once it's finalized, we'll be sure to bring it back up to folks and make sure everyone's aware. We'll put it on the newsletter as well. Mass hire teams, would love to have your input here as well. So thank you all for participating today and helping with this. Really appreciate it. Our next meeting is going to be on June 4th, and it might be in person. We will make sure to announce that and the details of where that might be as we get closer to. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.